how do you go about those possible black swans, and how do you which ones do you consider? Which ones do you have on your radar where you're like, okay, I tried to rule out that, How do you go about that?
Well, I mean, I think it's reasonable for anybody to allocate their portfolio to various assets because of risks. I don't think it's constructive to spend time dwelling on black swans. By definition, they're unknown unknowns. So if they're unknown unknowns, you're just wasting mental energy. If you're concerned that Bitcoin might go to zero, then invest 90% of your assets instead of 100%. Or 50, and then move on. When you get in a car, it's possible for you to get in a traffic accident, and you might get hit from the rear. You won't see it coming. How do you plan for that? Well, if you keep looking behind in your rear view mirror, looking behind you, you're more likely to get in an accident. So it's kind of dysfunctional to worry about something that you can't anticipate because you're wasting mental energy. So no, I don't really concern myself with it. If you're an investor and you want to invest in 10 different things, for example, you might want to invest in someone that makes hamburgers and someone that flies airplanes, but you don't want the pilot of the airplane to be continually worrying about some random meteorite hitting the airplane and checking for a meteorite to hit the airplane every 10 seconds because it'll interfere with the landing. And you don't want the burger flipper to be, it's possible you could serve someone a cheeseburger and they'll choke on it and die and sue you and shut down your restaurant. How many people that run restaurants worry about that? By the way, if your waitress walks up to you and says, are you going to choke on this cheeseburger and sue the restaurant? How's that for business? So I just think that, wouldn't you kind of be angry at the waitress and say, I'm not going to eat at this restaurant. Why don't you guys focus upon serving the cheeseburger? Stop worrying about that stuff. You can't control that. So I think worry about the things you can control. By definition, you can't control a black swan.
And if a time traveler came in a year's time and then in 10 years time, so 2022 and one in 2030, and would tell you about the Bitcoin price, which answers from that time traveler wouldn't surprise you at all?
Well, look, I think it's harder to predict what happens in the next 12 months because you have near-term volatility. I wouldn't try to predict it in 12 months. I think in 10 years, we're going to see billions of people with Bitcoin on their mobile devices. You're gonna see Bitcoin have definitely flipped gold and gone beyond it. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Bitcoin at $1 million a coin in 10 years. I mean, that would be double gold. It's gonna at least be double the value of gold. I expect over time it will rapidly approach the value of gold, and then it will approach aggressively the $100 trillion, which is the value of store of value debt, store of value monetary indexes, cash balances held in treasuries, savings accounts, and precious metals. So I think that that's a fairly straightforward future. Because I think it's the answer to every company's problems, every investor's challenges. I don't think there's anybody on earth that doesn't want to own their own monetary energy, right? I mean, who doesn't want money? Money is monetary energy, it's life. So ultimately, if you have a choice, would you like to have your life force under your control so that you're not going to starve to death and you can protect your family and live for the rest of your life in comfort? Or would you like to have your money controlled by a bank, controlled by a politician, controlled by a government, maybe interfered with by another government, and maybe it will have value and maybe it won't, and maybe you can access it and maybe you can't? I don't think there's any human being that really wants to give up all their monetary energy, everything they have, to a person behind a person behind a person that may or may not give it back to them. So I think that the future is clear. The future is a world of billions of people with Bitcoin under their control, controlled in their head or in their monetary devices, one way or the other, and all of that monetary energy moving at the speed of light over intelligent monetary networks, cross borders, cross counterparties, so that the world just functions more efficiently.
Fantastic. Michael, I truly believe 2020 you had such a big impact for the entire ecosystem. Long term, I think a lot of people still underestimate the impact you had. It's exponential, because I thought you were the catalyst to really bring all those companies in, and that was so essential for the ecosystem. So yeah, from the entire German crypto community, and that's by far the largest channel we have here, by far the largest community, I really want to say thank you. You're doing everyone a huge service. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Julian. You're too kind. What I've said to people before is I wouldn't have even gotten involved with Bitcoin if, when I looked at it, it wasn't clear to me that it was going to be successful with or without me, and the world needed it. Right? As Victor Hugo says, right? No force on earth can stop an idea whose time has come. Right? And this is the hope for all of the people on earth. It's a critical idea. The invention of a digital monetary network for the first time in 5,000 years is probably the most significant thing that's happened in our lifetime. And I'm just grateful to be able to be part of that.
I don't know how much you can share. How do you store the Bitcoins afterwards? How is you must have a very sophisticated system to store all that.
Yeah, well, there's a dozen institutional grade custodians of Bitcoin. Coinbase stores $90 billion worth of assets. Fidelity stores billions of dollars of assets. NYDIG stores billions of dollars worth of assets. Genesis stores billions of dollars worth of assets. There's a variety, Grayscale stores $30 billion worth of assets, and they all use different strategies. Generally, cold storage, multi-sig, Sarbanes-Oxley controls, audited, very careful. If you're an institution, then you're going to do it with an institutional grade custodian. BitGo, another example, I think they have $30 billion worth of assets under management.
Yeah, we are using BitGo, my company. Yeah, so quite good job. Yeah.